Alright guys, we are in the shop with the I-TALION that I just picked up a day ago, and I was just super excited about it, and I decided, you know what, why not try to do impromptu video as to what I do to get these things ready to go before I take them on my first run. So with these things, they are essentially a mass-produced product, so you're always going to get variance in build quality. So one thing I've learned in the last 6 to 8 months that I've been doing this is, before you go on the first run, you definitely want to check all your fasteners. Anything that has supposed to have Loctite, or anything that's supposed to have a nut and a bolt or anything like that, you want to check to make sure it's tight, or that it even has any Loctite in it. As well as one of the most important parts is you want to take your diffs out, and you essentially want to tune them to your liking, and more importantly, check if they have enough fluid in them to begin with. It's a very common thing where you take the diff out, you open it up, and there's either not enough fluid, or it's just not the kind of fluid you want. So in this video, I think what I'm going to do is just put you guys on time lapse. I'm going to go ahead and remove the center diff, remove the front diff, tune them, add the fluid, do what I need to do, and get this thing ready for its first run. Just wanted to take a pause real quick to explain these EXB diffs. I will be making a video with more in-depth details as to how these things work, but essentially you have a plate inside that's going to be your inner plate, then you have a friction plate, and then your outer plate, and these things essentially act on the sun gear here. So as the spider gears spread out, they put pressure on these gears here, which is this and that, and they limit the slip. So they're behind the sun gear, and the spider gears are essentially what push as the wheels try to go different directions or slip. It'll push against the sun gear, and this friction plate will push against the outside or the diff cups and limit the amount of slip. All right, guys. So I got the front diff out, and here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. This is obviously straight out of the box, and this is why I always do what I'm doing right now. This diff is essentially completely dry. There's nothing in this. I mean, there's like a little tiny bit that, you know, but there's really nothing in this. This is completely and utterly dry. I mean, look at this. Which again is not to say that Arma sucks or whatever. It's not. It's just the chance. Not the chance. It's just how it works when you're talking about mass production. You know, you're talking about thousands and thousands of the same thing. You know, this one was built on a Friday, like they say. So this is why it's important to check the fluids and everything. Go through the entire rig before you ever run it the first time. You're saving yourself time and money by just making sure you have a good amount of fluid in there, whatever it is kind that you like to use, so you don't basically ruin a front diff right out of the box. All right, guys, so we are here. We have put 500K fluid in the center, 30K fluid in the rear, 60K fluid in the front. That's usually what I go with LSD diffs, which brings me to the next point, which is I am actually very surprised this rig out of the box has LSD diffs, or limited slip differentials, in all three diffs out of the box, which maybe somebody who's had one of these before or has been doing RC stuff for longer than I have already knew that. But every Arma I've ever bought either comes with only the limited slip differential in the center, or like in the center in the rear, or something like that. Like, I've never seen an Arma out of the box that has all three limited slip differentials, which is great because I mean, I'm used to tuning that, so I think that's awesome. But just surprising because I didn't realize that there was any Arma that came with all three diffs, LSD diffs. So now we're at the stage where we've tuned the diffs. We made sure they have enough fluid. As you saw, the front diff was pretty much empty. The center and the rear weren't too bad. They were probably okay. But now we have to check all the fasteners. So from this point on, it's anything that has Loctite. I'm going to be replacing these two adjuster bolts or lockdown bolts for the motor, because these things are really prone to stripping. I might not even be able to get them off now. It might turn into a project getting those out, so I can put some, I have a nuts and bolts here that I can put in of my own, so I don't have to deal with this thing that they do here that strips really easy. So now it's a matter of checking all the nuts and bolts, making sure they're all tight and Loctited if they need to be, and then we're ready to rip. All right, guys, so see, this is what I'm talking about. First of all, there's no mesh on the center diff. If you move that front to back, side to side, however you want to call it, you should hear a clicking sound, which is the space between the pinion and the spur. Out of the box, this thing has zero mesh, or, you know, it's zero tolerance, and that's not good. Not good at all. Your gears would probably last all of not even a quarter of a battery. And then, as I stated before I started, I was going to put you guys on time lapse, but already look, this is stripped, so I can't get that out of there now. Let me see if, nope, they're both stuck. So we'll be back. All right, so bringing you guys back after I dealt with this center diff motor mount adjuster debacle. So here's kind of a good example of, if you're new to this hobby and you buy one of these things and you don't know what mesh is, you've never heard the word, or don't really know, you know, that you're not aware. The mesh on this one out of the box was just way too tight, just insanely tight, to where there was no mesh at all. So what you're hearing, what you're trying to listen for is you're trying to adjust this motor. This slides back and forth, and you're trying to adjust this motor so there's a little bit of like slack there, which is actually, this is probably still a little bit too loose. So you want that little clicking sound. But the thing is actually a little bit less. Can I not go anymore? Anyway, so you want a little bit of space. Otherwise, the mesh is too tight. And what would have happened is, the mesh being so tight, you would have created a ton of heat into the center diff, and it would have absolutely melted that case, that center diff case. You would have been driving your car, all of a sudden, you got no drive, your center diff is melted, and you're wondering why. And that's why, because out of the box, the mesh wasn't set correctly. So again, this is not to say that Arma sucks, oh, their cars are crap or whatever. It's not at all, because I mean, like I said, these things are built in bulk. But the point of this to me is that this is why it's so important to go through your rigs and have a good idea. Like maybe go on YouTube, either me or there's plenty of other guys that know more than I do, and research how to set your car up and do that before you make your first run, you know? And honestly, I think this should be something, I even think this should be in an instruction manual. Like, and maybe it is, I haven't read it completely thoroughly front to back, but it should be something that when somebody buys this for the first time and they don't know anything about RC cars and they go run it for the first time and it melts the center diff, you know they're not going to understand that it was an adjustment issue, not that the car is just a piece of junk. They're going to assume that the car just broke out of the box. They're not going to know that there was something not adjusted correctly, and if it would have been adjusted correctly, that they wouldn't have had this issue. So this is something that, you know, I emphasize whenever I talk to, you know, people on the forums, or whenever, you know, somebody gets into RC for the first time, because I was one of those people that didn't know anything about it, any of this stuff. And I have had center diffs melt and not know why. I just absolutely had no idea, because I was one of those people that I thought these things you just buy them and you just put the battery in, let's go. I had no idea. And I don't think you're supposed to have an idea. You know, it's like you're not necessarily, it's not really up to the customer to understand everything about the product they're buying. They should be able to just buy it and use it in its intended use. But quality control is something that's very difficult when you're talking about mass production. So anyway, I ended up, to be completely honest, I ended up having to take a motor mount that I had in stock. I have a couple here left. And just getting rid of the old one because I couldn't get the bolts out and I couldn't drill them out. And I was like, to me, it's not even worth the time and money, you know, to sit there and drill the bolts out and go through all the work. And yes, I've heard you can use a heat gun and heat the metal up so it melts the Loctite. I didn't do that. Maybe that would have worked. Who knows? Too late now. But I luckily had another motor mount I stuck on there, just, you know, from the extras that I have. And then I replaced this plastic piece here. I don't know where the old one is, but this forward section of the center diff mount comes plastic, and I don't like that because the holes easily strip, one, and two, it's not as rigid. It doesn't hold the center diff in place as well because it's plastic, so it flexes too much. So that's the only modifications I've done so far is this metal forward diff, center diff mount. And then I have these bolts again in stock here, and I'm gonna put two of these inside here to lock this thing down, lock this motor down, and not worry about stripping those bolts, because these are M3s instead of M3 instead of 2.5, and it's very, very deep, so you won't have that problem anymore. So anyway, let's get back to getting this thing together and getting it ready for its maiden run. Alright, so here we are, guys. So this thing is ready to rip now. I have checked all my fasteners. I have checked the shock standoff bolts and nuts. I've tuned my center diff to 500K fluid, my front diff to 60K fluid, rear diff to 30K fluid. Loctited everything. What else have I done? Checked underneath, made sure that these are all Loctited that go to the center diff mount and the steering stems. I checked my pillow balls, make sure those are tight. And yeah, she is pretty much ready to rip now. So this will be my first I-TALION. So we'll see how she does. Oh yeah, and I put some 4S backflips on it. I think it looks better with these, but I don't know how they'll hold up because they didn't hold up on my Creighton 6S. I kept blowing them up, but my Creighton 6S does have a little bit more of a powerful system with higher gearing or an 18-tooth pinion, so maybe they'll work on these and not be a problem, but we're gonna find out. So she is ready to go, and I'm excited. I'm gonna make a video on this one, and we'll see what she's got. All right, guys. It's crazy how a controller can make such a difference. I don't know what's gonna happen, but it's kind of the point. Are you kidding me? How did that wheel come loose? You saw me check the wheel nuts before I left.
So we're moving up.
Bro, this thing is cursed, bro. This car is fucking cursed. I literally checked the fucking wheel nuts right before I fucking left. All right, guys, this is like the third attempt with this thing. So we're gonna see what it's got yet again. Woo. I tell you what though. Oh, you know what? I think I might already be. Yep. All right, guys. We are back with the I-TALION. It's kind of in the evening now. Decided to give this thing a third try, which you'll hear about at the end of the video, but I've had several issues with this thing. Kind of surprising, to be honest. But we'll talk about it. Holy moly. I totally didn't mean to do that. And it landed on the rear and it didn't break, so that's a good thing. But let me just say, I didn't realize. Wow. Oh. Something break. Something broken on the front.
The front looked weird.
Yeah. Check for that. It just feels like it was steering awkward. Anyway, so I didn't realize the controller would make this much of a difference. I put the FlySky on it. I have the FlySky GT5, and it just woke this thing up, steering wise and throttle wise. Especially steering wise, like I'm surprised at how much more torque the steering servo has with just changing the controller. It's pretty crazy, to be honest. I'm like, what? I mean, look at this thing. It's like super wild now with this controller. Woo! Something's not right on this thing though. It seems to want to like steer a little bit to the left, yeah, on its own. But you know, after what I've done to this thing so far, I think I would recommend the first thing somebody do to their Arrma is put it on a FlySky controller. Like seriously. And there goes the wheel. I've been losing wheel nuts like crazy on this thing, and I don't know why, because I've never had this issue before. I-TALION. So this is like the third attempt, I'll be honest. I tried to get this thing out here. We ran into some issues. We definitely ran into some issues. I can't remember what the first thing I think was. I don't even remember now. Oh, it was the center diff cover. I used an aftermarket center diff cover, and it was rubbing against the center diff. It was rubbing against the center diff and binding, and I couldn't understand. I thought I did something wrong with the diff or something, but it was just that. So then I brought it back. Then brought it back out, hit like 2 jumps, and my shock standoff broke. So I was like, all right, time to upgrade that. So I've got upgraded shock standoffs on it. But now we're out, and it's getting her legs stretched. So far it's been pretty nice though. Kind of reminds me of a Typhon, but just kind of bigger. Woo! That was crazy. It did like a front backflip twirl thing, man. That was nuts. Hell yeah, let's go, I-TALION. Let's see what she's got. Woo! So I've got the 4S backflips from the 4S lineup of the Arrma lineup. And then it's got the stock motor, stock ESC, stock radio system. Oh, yes, there we go. But yeah. Oh, this is the maiden voyage, man. Let's see how she does. Woo! That was a close one, dude. It wanted a front flip or something. Ah. The grass is a little on the tall side. All right. It like dug into the freaking face of that. Let's go. Well, I'm liking it so far. Although it was definitely a challenge getting this thing up and running. Oh, that was right on an arm. Oh, yep, there you go. Can't land them wrong, dude. You can't land them wrong. Broken arm, guys. That is the maiden voyage. Ooh, even broke a shock stand off, and that's an upgraded one too. So there you go. First run. Shock standoff broke and a arm broke. I landed right on this corner though, so that's pretty much what'll happen to any of these cars. All right guys, we're out here with the I-TALION and the at my little spot with the Fresh Park ramp. So yeah, I'm gonna bring out the I-TALION. It's kind of the first bash session. You'll see in the videos there's some failures that I've run into up to this point. One being the shock standoffs, which only lasted about a couple jumps, so I've already upgraded those. And then I've had issues with the wheels coming off. I don't know why, because these 4S backflips that are on the 4S Arma, I've run on my Creighton 6S and I never had any of them actually come off or just fly off. Like the wheel nut itself gets loose and the wheel flies off. So I put Big Rock 6S wheel hexes with the 4S wheel nuts to see if I can solve that problem, which we're gonna find out now. And then I kept having pinions come off, which is another issue I don't have with any of my 6S rigs. So I don't know, we're gonna find out now, see what happens, and just send it. Yeah, this one's been a weird one. You know, every once in a while I get a 6S rig like this where it just like seems to not want to stay fixed. That was a decent little jump. You know what? I'm a little bit off center here, guys. Let me make an adjustment. There we go. Well, that was a nice little back flipper. It's about a quarter throttle right here. Huh, not bad on quarter throttle. So she's on the stock 2050 kV motor, stock 15 tooth pinion, stock 50 tooth spur. But as I showed you in the intro, we're 60K fluid in the front, 500K fluid in the center, and then 30 in the front, 30K. Ooh, shaved it. Ooh, I barely, ooh. I might have survived that. Oh my God. Not bad, not bad. It's no. See how it does that thing if you land rear tires first? Oh, that was not a good landing. The thing I never have issues with is pinions falling off. I mean, you Loctite the set screw and then you move on from life. Oh, look at this, guys. This is part of the tire from the Creighton XL video I did. Oh my God, that was wild. Anyway. Woo! Lands like a brick. That's a good one. There you go. All right, that was a decent one. To be honest, I didn't even let it dry up. I just wanted to get out here and give this thing a run, you know? And it's funny because it's lasted longer with the new pinion and the set screw without letting the Loctite cure than the original pinion did with letting the Loctite cure. But so far, man, I love the way it handles and the way it flips and drives, all of it. I love all of it. I mean, it's on the stock pinion, 15th tooth, it's pretty quick. You know what I mean? It's decent, man. I just haven't been able to keep the damn thing together, which is, oh, that was a nice landing. Another good one. But I'm like, what is going on? It's been such a strange, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had this happen to me before. I had a V5 Creighton that was the same way, dude, but that was way back when I didn't know how to build these things very well, so I kind of chalked it up to that. So I just thought, well, I just sucked at building them, so that's my fault, you know. But this one has turned out to be a lot like that one, where just little like weird things, you know. The mesh wasn't right out of the box, the front diff was empty, the shock standoffs broke right away, the wheels kept coming off. It was just like one thing after another, you know. Pinion gear coming off. And then now, no issues. I will say too, man, I didn't realize what a FlySky controller will do. And this has got the stock receiver, or no, not the stock receiver. It's got the FlySky receiver with the FlySky remote, but it's got the stock servo and, you know, obviously a stock power system. And literally just by connecting the FlySky controller, the servo is just way stronger. It turns real good. So I don't really know. I need to research that. But as soon as you add this FlySky controller, everything on the car becomes way more responsive. Woo! Oh, almost saved it. That was almost full throttle there. Almost full throttle. Ha! That was funny. She goes pretty good though, I must say. She goes pretty good. Ooh. Oh. Ha! Hell yeah. That was awesome. Let me bring it. Yeah, baby. That was decent right there. Hell yeah. Oh, we got LBC. All right, guys. Hey, I made it through a battery. It's a damn miracle, bro. That was awesome, though. Oof, sounds a little rough. We might have moved the motor a little bit. Anyway, first session out of the way. She did great. We'll see you back at the shop. All right, guys. So we're back here at the shop with the I-TALION. Well, let me just say, this is a perfect showcase as to how sometimes some cars come out just built on a Monday, and some cars are built on Saturday. So the challenges I face with this car are in some ways things that I've never actually dealt with, and some of them are things that I already knew were going to be an issue, but just wanted to do it stock just to see what it'll take before you have to start modifying, upgrading, etc. So the first challenge I had was the motor mount, which had the bolts that didn't want to come off. So I had to put a new motor mount on it and then actually set the mesh because the mesh was too tight. So fixed that. Went to go for my first bash, and then I had issues with a shock standoff that broke off, which that I understand because it's pretty common knowledge that the shock standoffs on these things will not hold up to like big sends. So then it was the shock standoffs, but then I started having issues with the wheels coming off, and the wheel nuts were just loosening up, flying off, and then the wheel would just fly off, which that I've never had an issue with. That has happened to me with the Team Corrali cars because the Team Corrali car wheel nuts don't have any serrated, are not serrated. But the Armor cars wheel nuts are serrated, so it was a little bit of a mystery to me as to why I kept having these come off. At first I thought it was because it was the 4S backflips, meaning, you know, these are meant for a 4S powered car, not a 6S powered car. But then I did run these on my Creighton 6S EXB version 2 without a problem, other than the fact that they would blow them off. They would blow up. But, you know, I figured this car is not quite as powerful. So then I kept putting just wheel nuts back on it and sending it, and they would come off. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to put the Big Rock 6S hexes and the 4S lineup, ARMA lineup wheel nuts, and that solved that problem. But then on my first bash on the ramp, my pinion came off after one jump. And again, this is not something I have problems with. Even with All the Armas I've ever had, none of my Armas have ever had issues with pinions coming loose. Because I usually check them, Loctite them, make sure they're good, make sure the mesh is right, and then, you know, usually you don't have that problem. But on this one, I went one jump and the pinion came loose, and it had come loose before. So I was just like, okay, well, I don't understand that, because that's not something that normally is an issue, just like the wheels coming off are not normally an issue. So I put a whole new pinion in it. Like I've shown before, I have extras here. So I put a pinion in it, didn't even let it dry, as you see in the you'll see in the video, or as you saw in the video. I didn't even let it dry, let the Loctite dry. I just set it on there and sent it, and it lasted the whole battery. So it seems like the stock pinion, you know, for whatever reason, just wasn't holding the tightness of the set screw. So I had issues with the shock standoffs, issues with the motor mount, issues with the wheels coming off. So I had to upgrade the hexes to 6S Big Rock hexes, put the 4S wheel nuts. I had to change my motor mount. I had to upgrade the shock standoffs. And then finally got a full battery bash out of it, which was fun, awesome. I love the way the car handles. Everything went great. But I did break some things. I ended up breaking the wing mount here, where it attaches to the tower to chassis brace on the rear. And then, interestingly enough, my motor came apart right in here. I don't know if I'll be able to pick this up and bring it closer to the camera, but you can take a good look at that. The motor came apart right here, and I don't know if the bolts sheared off or if they just came loose, because I'll put it on the video. I took a picture. The motor got up to 212 degrees, which is really hot. And I don't know why either, because the mesh was good. Everything was good on the car. And it's running the stock gearing. I looked at the owner's manual, and if you look at the manual, they give you an option for a 23 tooth pinion, and the stock one is a 15 tooth pinion. So I was running the 15 tooth pinion because I knew a 23 would absolutely overheat this thing in no time flat. So I put a 15 tooth pinion in it, and that's what it ran with. That's what you see in the video. So with a 15 tooth pinion and 50 tooth spur, which is basically stock gearing, or is stock gearing, it shouldn't have gotten so hot. I mean, it is hot outside. It's Florida, so it's ridiculous out there right now. But I just feel like stock gearing, it shouldn't have been that hot. But anyway, the point is that I'm not sure if, because it got that hot, that the Loctite basically, you know, loosened up or lost its grip, or if the bolts got sheared off and that's why it broke. Either way, I'm going to repair this. I have extra 6S motors just stocked away from other car builds that I've done. I'm not sure if I'm just going to go ahead and put a stock motor back in it, or if I'm just going to go ahead and put a hobby wing or a castle system in it. I do have a bunch of upgrades that I have ready to go. So I've got the A, B, C, and D block. I've got the chassis brace. I've got shock standoffs from Custom RC Upgrades. So the A, B, C, and D block chassis braces, and I'm probably going to go ahead and do a chassis swap on it. So I don't know. I think I'm just going to go ahead and upgrade this thing the way I usually do. Put the stronger chassis, a different power system, the chassis itself, chassis bracing, just all the things that I normally do to these rigs to get them to hold up to the abuse I put them through. So again, this is not to say that Arma sucks. I know that if this was a promotional video, it would be doing a terrible job of that. But it is to show that sometimes this is what happens with these cars. Sometimes you get one of these and it's just one failure after another failure after another failure. And it's just the way it is sometimes, man. Sometimes you'll get one box stock, throw it out there, send it to the moon over and over and over again, and it doesn't even skip a beat. Sometimes you get it out of the box, you go 10 feet down the road and something breaks. It's just unfortunate, unfortunate truth, which is what I was talking about at the beginning of this video, of mass-produced products. The quality control becomes very, very difficult, and it's just the way it is sometimes. So I will be upgrading this and then creating another video on what its new state of being and see how it lasts and how it holds up with all the upgrades. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching.